Human beings are social creatures, and it is important to note that when someone is isolated for too long, it does have everlasting effects. While isolation and alone time can be necessary for us and good for our mental health, we still require social interactions in some capacity. Social isolation can affect anyone, and it can happen for many reasons, but the risk of being lonely or feeling isolation can subject a person to slip into the hands of those who can take advantage of this loneliness in order for you to feel like you belong. Hi, my name is Jessa, and please join me as we look together top 10 disturbing cults in history you might accidentally join. And before we begin, in the last video with top 10 disturbing traditions in British royal families, I did give you guys a riddle. The riddle was, I make a loud sound when I'm changing. When I do change, I get bigger but weigh less. What am I? The answer is popcorn. Your next riddle will be at the end of this video. Anyways, let's get started. Number 10. Snake Cult of Glycon. Glycon was an ancient snake god who had a large and influential cult in the Roman Empire during the 2nd century. The cult is thought to have originated in Macedonia, where other snake cults, much like Glycon, had existed for centuries. Macedonians believed snakes had magical powers in infertility. Initially, the cult did not worship the spirit of the snake or an abstract idea of a godly snake. Instead, they worshipped an actual physical, tangible snake that resembled a god. The focus of worship in the cult was fertility. Barren women would bring offerings to Glycon in hope of becoming pregnant. The cult's beliefs were spreading all over lower social classes, and over time, even high-class citizens and officials were die-hard believers of Glycon's healing and the prophecies Alexander had told. The support and belief of emperors, paired with the healing powers of the serpents throughout history, lured many peoples into the cult, as there are no shortage of converts and believers. Roman coins were even made in honor of Glycon, which was likely happened way after Alexander's lifetime. The Glycon cult is still referred to this day. The statue that was found in Casatana, Romania, is on display at the Casatana History and Archaeology Museum. The statue is even commemorated on a postage stamp from 1974 and on a 10,000 lei banknote from 1994. And to this day, people declare themselves as devotees of Glycon. Number 9. Cult of Dionysus. The cult of Dionysus has sparked dark speculations and controversies for over many years, and it is highly secretive as an organization. Knowing what exactly occurs within the privacy of members is still unknown. That's a large train. Just to list a few of the many theories, here are some of the dark speculations and controversies surrounding the cult of Dionysus, quoting excess and madness. The cult's celebration of intoxication and ecstasy led to accusations of excess and madness. Critics argue that the excessive consumption of wine and the frenzied behavior of the cult participants could lead to a breakdown of societal order and morality. The rejection of traditional roles and the temporary suspension of societal rules during these festivals raised concerns about moral and social distribution, as well as disruption. Bodily liberation, as some Dionysus rituals associated with liberation and promiscuity. The mystery religion aspect of the cult fueled rumors and concerns about what might be happening behind the closed doors. Participation of Dionysus rituals could result in real-life tragedies and violence. Though the speculations likely do hold some truth, being able to definitely answer whether at all or any of these theories are true is pretty much impossible. Records of the cult's activity were often exaggerated through misunderstandings and misinterpretations of the cult's practices, but it is thought that many of the rituals have been spotted throughout history, hinting that the cult may not be as inactive as many people think. Number 8. The Pythagoreans. The Pythagoreanism originated in 600 BCE based on the belief and teachings that Pythagoras and his followers held. Pythagoras established the first Pythagorean community in his ancient Greek colony of Croton. The belief spread quickly throughout the land, and the death of Pythagoras created even more popularity as people created their own traditions within the belief system. The beliefs influenced people like Plato, and through him they influenced Western philosophy. Most of the surviving information of Pythagoras came from Aristotle and the philosophers of the Pythagorean school. The beliefs widely spread, and some say that they have survived as a part of Bacchic cults and Orphism. The belief included science and religion. In the early years, the Pythagorean sects were closed societies and where new members were chosen by existing ones. Based on intellect and discipline, soon it became customary for family members to become Pythagorean, as it developed into philosophical traditions that influenced everyday life and sworn members into secrecy. They believed that the soul of the human was buried in the body, and the highest reward a human could attain was the soul joining the gods, meaning they escaped reincarnation. However, after Pythagoras' death, there was tension between the cults, which resulted into an arson attack. The disagreement led to two separate Pythagorean traditions, one called akousmatikoi and the other mathematikoi. One focused more on math and science, while the other was more on unethical practices that changed the original beliefs. Number 7. Order of the Nine Angels. The Order of the Nine Angels, ONA, is one of the most mysterious and highly controversial groups in the world and modern Satanism and the occult. The ONA was founded in the UK in the 1960s, promoting an extreme and often dangerous form of Satanism. Its core belief and practices are complex and unconventional, which has led to bouts of intense debates and controversy. From Satanists to non-practicing communities alike, the heart of their philosophy is the concept of the sinister tradition, which is a radical, committed path that encourages members to challenge societal norms and embrace chaos and darkness. They view Satan as a symbol of rebellion against the established order, advocating the personal transformation through dark and sometimes harmful experiences. One of the most notorious aspects of the ONA is its advocacy for culling, a term they use to describe acts of harm and even Homo sapien sacrifice. Some of the ONA's writings are extremely dark and grossly disturbing, further demonstrating their deeply antisocial and extremist perspective. While they remain highly secretive, tight-knit, and a controversial group, their writings and philosophies seem to have managed to spread widely and even found their ways to other areas of the cult, impacting various forms of alternate spirituality. Their belief and practices are widely criticized and condemned for their proud and loud promotion of harm and extremism. Number 6. The Eleusinian Mysteries. They are considered the most famous of the secret ancient rites rituals, and their basis was an old Pythagorean cult, and there's evidence that they were derived from the religious practices of the Mycenaean period. The mysteries refer to Hades' abductions of Demetrius' daughter Persephone and was told in 3 phases: descent, search, and ascent. Originally, the cult of Demetrius was private, hidden under telestrion. Some of these practices are seemingly influenced by other religious practices, specifically those from the Mycenaean period. The group would hold a feast at the beginning. Priests would fill 2 special vessels and pour them out, one to the east and one to the west, while the people would look upwards, then downwards, while chanting, reign, and conceive. Then a child would be initiated into the group with the divine fire, from the divine fire. Honestly, I tried to decode this, but I didn't really understand it. The climax of the celebration represented the force of the new life. When the mysteries started, immortality was not part of their belief, but they believed that it would grant them a better fate in the underworld. Eventually, the mysteries was spread far and wide, and people flocked all over to participate. And the mysteries were controlled by 2 families, which led to a huge number of initiates. The only requirements was that you never actually directly caused someone's death unless you were able to speak Greek. Number 5. The Temple of the Black Light. The Temple of the Black Light, which is also referred to as MLO, a group associated with the left-hand path spirituality and philosophy, was founded in Sweden in the early 1990s. The MLO has gained popularity in the cult theorists for its unique approach to Satanism and the left-hand path. The central notion of the MLO is the self-created worship that they are called chaotic Gnostic Satanism, which set them apart from many other satanic groups. MLO's beliefs are rooted in a drastic form of nihilism and a deep desire to embrace chaos, darkness, and spiritual rebellion. They believe in an intangible force called chaos, which they see as a destructive, creative, and transformative entity, has a great power and aims to oppose the order and constraints of the universe. MLO's members revered Lucifer as a symbol of enlightenment, liberation, and defiance against traditional religious and societal norms. However, their interpretation of Lucifer is much different from popular depictions of him. To them, Lucifer represents a dark and chaotic force that opposes established religion and the moral codes of society. The Temple of Black Light is considered a highly controversial group even within the broader satanic. They are considered for their extremist and nihilistic views, as their beliefs are not as an accurate representation of traditional satanic traditions and beliefs, which normally encompasses a wide spectrum of practices and beliefs. The cult is actually still active to this day, but very in small numbers. Number 4. Love Has Won. Love Has Won is a new religious movement which was led by Amy Carlson in 2006, referred to as the mother god in the group. Amy was into New Age philosophy in early 2000s, where she was constantly on forums like lightworkers.org, and all of a sudden she got into the paranormal phenomena, which then she left her 3rd husband, her kids, and her job as a manager at McDonald's, and cut off all ties with her family. She then joined a group where they posted YouTube videos in 2009 under the name Galactic Federation of Light, which I don't know if you can still look up on YouTube today. Eventually, she rebranded the group to Love Has Won, and the group has been described as a cult by ex-members and media outlets. The group is between 12 to 20 full-time members who lived with her at the time of her death. The theology of Love Has Won has been described as fluid, combining New Age spirituality, conspiracy theories, and elements from mainstream Abrahamic religions. The group has proclaimed that Amy was a divine 19 billion-year-old being who had birthed all creation. She claimed to have been reincarnated 534 times, including Jesus, Joan of Arc, Marilyn Monroe, and Cleopatra. And on April 28, 2021, the mummified corpse of Amy was discovered in her mansion in Crestone, and the state of the decaying suggests that she had been dead for several weeks. She was 45 at the time of her death, and her body was found sleeping in a bag wrapped in Christmas lights, and her face was covered in glitter, and her eyes were missing. And what the authorities stated was a makeshift shrine. 7 members of the group were charged for the abuse of the corpse, as well as due to the presence of 2 kids on the property. Number 3. Angel's Landing. The story of Daniel Perez, a cult leader who convinced parents he had to physically harm their daughters in order to stay alive, shocked the world when it surfaced in 2015. He led a commune named the Angel's Landing and lived off of life insurance money he had earned after ending the lives of one of his followers, Victoria Hughes. After his conviction, one of the victims described the ordeal that she went through of how Sear lured his victims into his obscene lifestyle. Sarah McGrath was 17 years old when her family joined the commune after Perez, whom her mother met while selling him a house, convinced them to move in. He claimed to have magical powers, including the ability to see the future, and led his followers into the 20-acre property, the Angel's Landing. Initially, the communal family was actually pretty chill. However, it didn't take long for things to turn dark. Daniel always appeared to seem innocent or someone who cared too much, which is usually how cult leaders work. They seem like they care about you a lot. And her mother was actually a very thoughtful person, so she thought somehow she needed to protect Daniel. He was very charismatic and really quite the talker. Somehow he appeared very wise, and Perez had eventually convinced his followers in the commune that he was a centuries-old angel who needed to have intimate relationships with young girls to stay alive. Investigators would learn that Hughes was actually collecting millions of dollars in life insurance payouts, and the 6 deaths that ended up resulting as accidents were connected to the cult. Perez was eventually convicted on all counts and sentenced to 2 life terms with consecutive sentences of 80 years. Number 2, Cult of Sacrifice. The cult of sacrifice originated thousands of years ago, but its presence was not as constant. It mainly occurred during the time of great stress when its belief and practices would be most useful. Records of the cult are poorly recalled and only existed in written form, so the origin of the location is actually unknown, but it's speculated that it began in the eastern hemisphere of Rathnur because its most written evidence was found there. The cult was based in an idea of charity and self-sacrifice for the benefit of others, and particularly those who needed the most. The cult took these ideals to an absolute extreme, as they would starve and fast not because it was a religious practice, but because they had given all their food to other people. They were considered minimalists, not because they wanted to, but because they would give all their money and possessions away to those who were perceived to having less. Essentially, they would damage themselves to the point of illness and death into the name of the sacrifice and hoping of helping. To join the cult, the one thing necessary was the blessing of an existing cult member. However, to the extreme point of charity and the point of self-deprivation, the cult had only lasted up to 2021, as the last member had passed away on August 8th. Considering the order had to be initiated by a previous member, this once long-lasting cult is now diminished into time. And finally, number 1, Heaven's Gate. Bonnie Nettles and Marshall Applewhite are the co-founders and co-leaders of the Heaven Gate's new religious movement. Although Bonnie Nettles was a registered nurse and was married to a businessman named Joseph Nettles, she lived a relatively normal life. It was unclear how she met Marshall, but after she met a psychic telling her she was going to meet another man, she met him and they met in the exact description of Marshall. In 1975, Applewhite and Nettles persuaded a group of 20 people from Oregon to abandon their families and possessions and move to eastern Colorado, where they promised that an extraterrestrial spacecraft would take them to a kingdom of heaven. Pretty weird, but I'm pretty sure if you're really desperate, you might actually want to go. Oh, Nettles called herself T, and Applewhite took the name Doe, explained that human bodies were merely containers and they had to be abandoned in order to favor the higher existence. In late March of 1997, as Hale-Bopp reached its closest distance to Earth, Applewhite and 38 of his followers drank a lethal mixture of vodka and then laid down to die. Phenobarbital. Yep. They drank a lethal mixture of phenobarbital and vodka and then laid down to die, hoping to leave their body containers and enter this alien spacecraft and pass through Heaven's Gate into a higher existence. After an anonymous tip, police entered the mansion in the Rancho Santa Fe, an exclusive suburb of San Diego, California, to discover the 39 victims who had all taken their own life. Well, that's it for today. I hope you don't join a cult, but if you think you are in one, just a note, if you can't really make decisions on your own and is only told to do things based on the basis of another person, it's probably something you should talk to someone else about for a second or third opinion, who's not in the same crew. Or even more so, the best suggestion that I learned over time is to follow your gut. If it doesn't feel authentic to you, then don't do it. Anyways, your next riddle. I add 5 to 9 and get 2. The answer is still correct, so what am I? Put your answer in the comments below and I'll answer the question. I'll reveal the answer in the next video. Top 10 evil families that secretly run the world. I wonder who they are. Anyways, thank you for joining me. My name is Jessa. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see your faces in the next one. Bye.